Hi. I'm doing Sssappp from Treehouse Brewing Company. So I went there a couple weeks ago at this point, and I've drank a whole bunch of this one. I actually did a review of it, but I didn't like my review. So I'm gonna do a re-review. Now it is, let's see, 15, it is 19 days old, so just under 3 weeks. Still fresh. But in this review, I can talk a little bit how I think it's changed as it's gotten older. So it's kind of like the extra hopped version of Sssappp featuring Chinook hops. But for the first week or so, I was getting so many esters. It was really, really ester forward because their treehouse yeast is just really prominent. And I feel like after a couple weeks, all the fruity esters, not all of them, but some of them have faded a little bit. I'm actually noticing the Chinook hops more, because at first it was all stone fruits, tropical, all that stuff that's coming from the yeast, and the yeast is kind of helping to bring those characteristics from the hops. That stuff is kind of faded, so now you're actually more sappy, grapefruity, piney Chinook hops are coming out, I think, more. So this is 7% alcohol, which is weird because I think regular Sssappp is 7.3, but this does say 7% on the can. And I've drank a lot of this and I like it quite a bit. Haven't had one in a couple days. Ooh, and this glass is sort of dirty in one part, but it looks like your beautiful, perfect treehouse can. I kind of lightly swirled the can around because I noticed that some of the haze was falling to the bottom, not really forming a bunch of big chunks or anything. But I like to have that haze on the top pour. If I just left these in my fridge, not touching them for weeks, and then I didn't shake the can up, it would be a lot clearer. But I like to kind of disperse that stuff. But you do have to be aware that sometimes these can have undesirable chunks that get stirred up in the bottom. But that just looks really perfect, really beautiful, quite pale. Not the palest beer, but definitely one of the haziest beers I've had that isn't ugly, murky, and brown or gray. And the head looks great. Yeah, still big tropical notes, which is weird because Chinook, I think this is single hopped with Chinook hops, or it's mostly just Chinook hops. And it's like Chinook is always really, really bitter, grapefruit pith and pine. Like I had a Lawson's Chinookard like a week and a half ago, and it couldn't have been more different from this beer. It was really bitter, but this is still, just the treehouse yeast is just still almost dominating it. There's some ruby red grapefruit in there. It's some pretty juicy grapefruit, I would say now. But it still smells like sweet candy, cotton candy type stuff. And then like pineapple, candied orange. If I get my nose deep in there, I'm getting a little bit of pine sappiness. Yeah, if I really inhale, it's like, oh yeah. It seems almost more like this is a Citra Mosaic beer with Chinook in the mix, even though I'm pretty sure that's not what it is. It's a Chinook forward beer. And the aroma isn't explosive. It is getting a little old, but it is a rather big aroma. Not as big as like, a double dry hopped Galaxy IPA that's, that I opened like 3 days ago. The Idle Hands Galaxy 4 scene, which was really nice. Really nice body. It isn't ultra fluffy and light on the tongue like some treehouse beers are sometimes, but it has a good juicy texture. Very lightly prickly, a little bit, spicy, but a pretty full body for 7%. Just enough bitterness. Yeah, it's perfectly balanced at this point. It might be a little less bitter than it was at first, because some treehouse beers I find would be a little bit too sweet. This one is heading towards the sweet side. I would say it's perfect right now because I feel like some of those esters are letting me notice the Chinook hops, and I really appreciate getting some more green qualities, some more earthy. It's kind of a woodsy type thing, almost like men's cologne. Yeah, a lot of people talk about how you have to let Treehouse beer sit or other New England IPAs sit because the hops will mellow out. Like something about the hops greenness. People like to talk about green beer. I think it's the opposite with this. You want to let the yeast mellow out so I can notice the hops more. I swear that's what's happened with this beer. I don't know if that's how it is with every batch of Sssappp because they've done it. Oh, I think they've done it like twice this year maybe. But I really like it. There's no booze. Finish is just dry enough. I got a little texture on my tongue. And it kind of fades into some bitter yet candied citrus. It tastes like I'm getting lemon, lime, grapefruit notes lingering with a very light, spicy, peppery quality. But it's not slick on the tongue. It's kind of refreshing. Even though it's got plenty of sweetness and body, it's just a really, really well-made beer. Yeah, I'm glad that we got a full case of this. Really nice. I give it a 4.5. It just has everything I really want in an IPA right now because I want the ones that are a little bit drier and a little bit more on the bitter citrus. I used to be obsessed with all the ones that were just all tropical fruit and candy, which is what this one seems like at first with the aromas, but when you get a few sips in, it does get a little bit more lip smacking. It almost has a little bit of a tartness to it. And I still get notes of the barley too, actual slightly toasty malted barley in there. So it's a pretty complex beer. That's what Treehouse, does the best. Not every batch has turned out really that great. I like the Hurricane, but the batch that I have, I don't know, it's still really yeasty forward, not much body, not very bitter. But if you see the 11, 15, 18 batch of Sssappp, I would highly recommend trading it with someone, especially if you want a Treehouse beer that has the big body and the Treehouse character, but it's a little bit drier and more on the bitter citrus end. That's enough. All right, bye.